Hey, we're back for another episode of That 90s Baseball Pod. I am your host, Brandon Warren, and you can find me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And across the screen here, if you're watching on YouTube, is Mr. Gregg Olson. You can find him on Twitter at GREGGOLSON30. Mr. Olson, how are we doing today?
Good, Brandon. Good to be back on. Got one of my favorite former teammates back with us. He competition for a little while with Minnesota. And
yeah,
we ended up passing each other a bunch of times and finally got together in LA in 2001.
Just a couple of Tigers on the call today. If you haven't figured it out already, it's former big league utility man Jeff Reboulet coming to the program. How's it going, Jeff?
Woo! I'm going good, guys. How's it going over there? You guys doing all right?
Doing good, man. Great to have you on.
Talk some ball, man. I'm ready anytime.
Awfully chilly here in Minnesota. It's 10 degrees right now. I'm guessing you guys are probably dealing with a little better weather right now.
Yeah, Ohio's I'm in Dayton, Ohio area, and it's always pretty good here in the fall and the spring, and we've had a light winter so far, but it's starting to kick in a little bit, getting the 30s, maybe a little snow later today, but not like Minnesota, man. That place can rock in the winter.
So just a couple of Tigers, as we said. How did you guys, when you met each other, reconcile the fact that one of you was at LSU and one of you was Auburn? Because that's no small deal.
I don't know, Ollie, how you do it, man.
You know what? I liked Reb. Played well, and he was only there in '86 when I think LSU thumped me at their place. But you kind of get used to the LSU Tiger guys roaming around the big leagues. There was enough of them. I had Ben McDonald for quite a while, and
ooh, that's a tough one there.
Yeah. And he's a lot more obnoxious about it than you were.
Yeah, I'm pretty quiet. I'm pretty easy going, so I'm a pretty decent teammate. The only guy I ever really got on was Bordick, because Mike Bordick played at Maine when I was at the World Series, and him and his teammates kept trying to go for third on triples, and we kept chucking him out. So I had to give him crap for years after that.
We had Big Ben on a few weeks ago too, if people want to check that out in the archives, or if even you, Jeff, want to check it out. But I have to admit, and Oli will probably tell you that I'll throw a lot of stuff at you that maybe you haven't heard before or haven't heard in a long time. But I always had a lot of fun with my uncle, who we always called him Jeff Reboulet because he looked exactly like you in like 1993. And so I had an uncle who looked like Jeff Reboulet, and I had a cousin who looked like Rich Becker. If that tells you anything about how my childhood went, I viewed everyone through the lens of what Minnesota twin did they look like. So I'm sure that's not much of an honor for you, but I always thought it was really cool to have an uncle who could pass for Jeff Reboulet.
Well, all I get out of that is you had an ugly family, so I don't know much about that.
If the shoe fits, if people are watching on YouTube, they can see that.
Man. Yeah, there was actually a guy that they kept running into that kind of looked like me, and people would always say, "Are you this guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, not that guy." It's kind of crazy. Like in Ohio, not many people know you. When you're in the American League, nobody knows who you are here. They're Cincinnati Reds fans, right? So they didn't even know Minnesota exists for years until interleague play. So I would be like, my mom was a dance teacher for like 50 years. So, local, tap ballet stuff. And so whenever I come back to Dayton, Ohio, I'm known as Miss Joy's son. So nobody knows. Boy. You Miss Joy's son? I'm like, yeah, sure. So,
You must have some Albert Belle stories from LSU. You also play with Mark Guthrie, who was a future teammate with the Twins. A lot of things going on in LSU, but I gotta ask you about Albert Belle. We've talked about him with Big Ben as well, and also there was about a 3-hour podcast about Albert Belle that I can share with people off air. But Albert Belle has a lot of fun stories.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy, man. Back in the day, Albert was his twin brother, Terry, I'm sure you heard about, was at school, and they were just fun-loving guys, man. We had a great time. I was my junior year, I came into LSU. Albert was a freshman, and then and Terry, and then my senior year, I was he was moving along his sophomore year. He's kind of doing really well. Myself and Rob Leary, catcher, played in the organization for a long time. He's still with the Diamondbacks doing stuff professionally. He's roving. He's been a big league bench coach, everything all the way through every organization. And we were both team captains, so we never really had a problem with Albert. There was one situation where I think the first game as a freshman, he came in and he was going to play at Mississippi State, and that was not a place that Skip wanted to start him, obviously for obvious reasons. So he was kind of upset about that, but we kind of like, that was the only real thing. And we just told him, listen, man, this is what you're doing today, and don't worry about it. So we never had any issues. I guess the following year, 87, the draft year, that was when everything kind of fell apart up there. So I really don't know what happened. He was a great teammate. Otter, I don't know if you had him, but I had him in Baltimore, and, keeps to himself. And yeah, he didn't like the media too much, but other than that, man, he was a good guy, man. I never had any problems. He trusted me, I think, because I knew him at a younger age. So, myself and Mark Guthrie used to go see him. I think we went to visit him when we were in Minnesota. He was coming in with the White Sox, maybe.
Yeah, like 96, 97.
Yeah, somewhere earlier than that, maybe. So I don't know when he was with it was whoever. Maybe
95.
Yeah, we went in and we went to go see him at the hotel. He was playing video games, just hanging out like normal. So yeah, we didn't have any issues, and always a good teammate. What a player, man.
Smart guy too, right? Real smart guy.
Yeah, accounting major. Him and his brother were accounting majors. His mom and dad were teachers.
Yeah.
Things you don't know about guys, but he was definitely, a beast player, like unbelievable. But we used to have a good time with him, man. He was all right.
Well, you saw him as a freshman too. So when you see a guy at that stage of development, it's got to be, you just kind of think about what this guy can become. And then all of a sudden, he becomes one of the most devastating right-handed hitters. I mean, in an era where there were good right-handed hitters, Frank Thomas comes to mind immediately, but Albert Belle is in that conversation. And to see him at that age, I feel like I'd feel pretty fortunate to have gotten to see that. What were your takeaways from seeing him then versus in the big leagues?
Yeah, like you could see the raw power, and he's super athletic. There's stories about him. I'm sure Ben has some stories about him. They didn't get along at some points, but they, it was, you heard stories about him playing high school football. He was a quarterback in football. And I heard he threw a pick in maybe it was a state game or playoff game or something. And he jogged backwards and let the guy run by him. Looked like he was just going to let the guy run by him. And then he just reached out, stole the ball, and went the other way. So
wow.
Just athletically off the charts, little raw talent wise. I think, Ole would say kind of like a Bo Jackson kind of situation in a way, where just talented as all get out, just needed to figure it out baseball wise a little bit. And you could just see it. Like in the World Series, we played our last game, we played Miami, and he came up, and one of their closers, I don't know if it was Rather or somebody, came in, was punching dudes out, and he hit one about 8 miles over the scoreboard and left. And you're just like, not surprising to us. So that's the kind of thing he was. And then later on in his career, obviously he was such a perfectionist at that time. He was just, if he didn't hit the home run 800 feet, then he was disappointed in himself. Right. So that's just that was a fault of his, that he was just a perfectionist and didn't want to ever make an out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I think there's still a Fernando Vina sized hole in the ground where he buried him. And so that's, I was going to say that's how Albert will be memorialized, but it might be how Fernando is memorialized even more so.
Reb, what year was that? You remember that? I thought, like, I don't know if most teams, but after Albert did that, I feel like in spring training, there was a new way of breaking up the double play. Obviously, when you never wanted to run into a tag at second base. So, prior to that, it was kind of a backpedaling and staying, trying to stay in a rundown and not giving up the easy double play. And then after that, it really did seem like there was a conversation in spring trainings of, well, hey, this is legal. Go ahead and do that. And you as a middle infielder, did you see a little bit more of that?
I think it was kind of old school all the way through. Like, I grew up with that play. I just wasn't a big enough dude to apply too much of that play. In college, we would have done that, where if they got you, you would try to, knock the ball out. But it kind of went from, as you've noticed, the game keeps changing, right? So the old school thing was, hit dudes in the ribs and do whatever. And then it became, never pitching in, hardly ever pitching in. This situation, I think the old school guys used to run you over, because I can tell the story, because remember Don Baylor, obviously, as being a Twins guy.
Yep.
Legendary Don Baylor was the roving hitting guy for the Twins. And I was in Double-A, and the situation came up. He was just in town, and I happened to have that play happen to me. And I was always the guy that saw it early. My thing about playing baseball was I had pretty good instincts, right? And for some reason, this dude was able to come up on me fast. I tried to bail out of the way, get down, whatever. And the guy tagged me and was able to turn the double play. And I was just completely disappointed in myself. And the next day we have a meeting, and Don Baylor, God rest his soul, was in dugout, and he was talking about the things that happened in the game. And just to kind of tell you how old school things were, he's like, well, Reb, he knew he messed up as soon as right after the play I saw him, he knew he messed up. He should have knocked that guy in the left field. And I was thinking, no, I should have stopped and stayed in the rundown, so I'm like, okay. So the other part of that story was Paul Sorrento, if you remember, Paul was hitting, and a dude came inside and he ducked out of the way and whatever. And Baylor said, Sorrento, he's got to take that one in the head. He knows he should have gotten hit in the head. And we're all looking at each other. No, we're not going to get in the head. So that's the old school mentality of what happened. But I agree with you. It made people think about the play and how to do it. And honestly, the best route is probably to knock them out of the way so they can't turn the double play.
Wow.
It's so funny to, you play on Twitter a little bit and something like that will happen. It's like, oh, that's totally illegal. I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, he's in the baseline. He has the ball.
Yeah.
You can make contact and keep him from making the throw to first base and breaking up the double play. It's just, the world has changed in our game, where it's hard to say. I hate to say this, but you value the player on the other side a lot more than we did. You didn't want to hurt somebody, never wanted to hurt anybody, but now it's going to the point where we don't want to risk hurting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So throwing inside, running a guy over, all that is kind of, don't do that. Don't want to risk somebody getting hurt. Well,
I'll be honest with you, Ole. I don't know that back in the day that some guys were worried about hurting the other guy. I
was trying to be politically correct.
I know you were. And I'm sitting there going, I don't think that was it. I can remember my rookie year in Minnesota and, playing in the old Metrodome with the turf, and, it's a long distance, out to the turf. Right. So I get a double play ball. I think I came in late they probably pinch hit for Gagne, and I came in for defense, and we're playing Boston, and it's kind of the battle, for the, playoffs, they won the World Series in 91, and I'm here in 92, and, some rookie coming over here playing utility. And I caught a ball from Chuck Knobloch, and I cleared the runner. Clearing the runner nowadays is going just side of the base. I literally was in the turf, like out in the turf, like not on the dirt. And Greenwell came in. I can't remember Greenwell's first name, but he was
Mike.
Mike, thank you. Came in and absolutely blew up my knee. I was down. I was like, I ain't never been attacked 15 feet from the base before. And so that was a lesson for me. And I was in a different space, but it was break up the double play, but his spike also hit me above the knee and the thigh. So is it breaking up the double play, or he tried to kill the guy? I think he was trying to kill the guy. So
well, he didn't succeed, and we're happy for that, because
close.
I kind of run through it, and we had to talk about Pagliarulo could have crushed me at home plate.
Yeah.
In, I think 92 or 93.
Yeah.
And the times that you end up getting a throw coming up the line as a pitcher, and you're almost thankful. I was thankful that Pagliarulo did not crush me. I was thankful that the guys that were running behind me didn't take their spikes up the back of my calves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it was in play, it was realistic, it was the way the game was. It might have been, the spikes up the leg might have been a little bit dirty, but
Right.
It's the way it was. So you're kind of thankful that you don't get crushed on a play. You know, it's just so fun. It's just so different to watch now where it's not even thought of.
Yeah, it is a little different. And, you know, obviously you take somebody out, you know, in that situation, you're probably going to fight, you know, the next guy's getting hit. So it turns into escalates, obviously, until things get figured out. But you're right. I mean, there was a lot of situations where I remember in spring training, I think it was Mike Benjamin was a utility guy. I can't remember who he was with. He was with San Francisco or somebody. And he turned a double play, and I had to actually try to avoid him because I could have absolutely killed him in spring training. And I kind of didn't get to see him, but I told his coach, I'm like, listen, man, you got to tell him to get out of the way. I could have killed him. Like he literally should have been blown out. So you kind of like, you know, pass the word on you, gives you, hey, thanks, man, appreciate it. You know, but you're just kind of letting them know, like during the season, I'm gonna get you. But you know, it's spring training. I'm not, you know, it's not that important, but I'm not going to get hurt trying to get out of the way of you, which I about did. So, you know, those are things that are a little different these days. I think they play more of that style most of the time now. And with the rules and everything, you know, it's not necessarily the players, it's the rules. Like the rules have changed. You're not allowed to do those things. You have to slide straight into the base. You know, you slide straight in the base and pop off a quarter of an inch and now you're out. Like, I can't tell you how many times guys would be out. Your guys are going to get hurt doing that. So you got to look at the rules and figure out, what do you like about the game? What do you not like about the game? What makes the game work? And, you know, obviously those are changing a lot.
Well, I tell you, if
Partner, what do you got?
if you could have killed a guy at 6 feet and a $160 or $170, imagine what Kirby Puckett would have done to a guy like that, barreling in the way he ran. That
yeah, he was fast.
That would not have been good. He was fast for his size. So I want to talk about, okay, so you go in the 10th round in the draft for the Twins, and then your minor league career is kind of a story of perseverance. I think you spent more time in Orlando than maybe Shaquille O'Neal did, which I'm not saying that to make a joke. It was a story of perseverance. You debut in your late 20s and you still managed to hang around for well in excess of a decade. What I want to ask as I'm circling the wagon here is, what clicked for you in Portland in 92? Because you had a really nice offensive season after a couple of years, you know, kind of struggling a bit. You're taking your walks, you know, playing all over the place. What clicked that eventually got you to the big leagues after a strong season with Orlando that year?
That's a good question. I don't know that anything clicked. I think I was the same player I always was. It was just, they just kept sending people past me. I think part of this professional thing is you get into an organization, and the Twins were really good. They were awesome. They gave me an opportunity and did everything. But the first two managers, I got drafted in 86. I went straight from the World Series to high A ball in Visalia, California. So I spent half a season there, you know, ended up taking that team to the playoffs. Me and a couple of the draft picks turned that kind of team around a little bit. And, you know, they recognized that, sent me right to Double A the next year. So after a half season in high A, I go right to Double A and I started doing my thing. Well, I was an all-star at the half, at the break. I sprained my ankle. I didn't realize this. Twins took care of me. I thought I was still an all-star. They evidently took me off the all-star team. So it would have been me and Walt Weiss as the shortstops in the all-star game. They ended up giving it to Jeff Houston because I got hurt. And I found out the Twins actually bought me the watch that you get for being a Double A, but I didn't realize I was not a Double A all-star. I never was listed as an all-star because I got hurt. I couldn't play in the game. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. So anyways, just to kind of go through the process that year, I kind of was physically not strong enough to finish the year playing every day. I would be 300 halfway through the year, and then I would fall apart at the end of the year because it's 150 degrees in Orlando, you know, raining every day at 5 in a sauna. And I went from 180 pounds down to 155 pounds by the end of the year. And it was just physically daunting for me. So I don't think I changed a whole lot. What happened to me was at the end of the year, I had a good year, but it didn't look as good at the end of the year. And my manager left, George Mitterwald left. He switched or did organizations or something. So he was not there to fight for me in the winter. Then the next year, it was another guy, Dwayne Gustafson. Same thing, really good first half, second half wasn't as good, you know, manager's not there to pull for me. So guys started coming through. Scott Laius came through. Some other guys came through. They kept sticking prospects in front of me, and I'm going, I'm doing pretty well here. So at the end of the day, I think what happened was, I kind of got stuck in the back burner there doing my defensive thing. Gardenhire came in, saw that I could play a little bit. I had a terrible year. And I'm like, Gardy, I played terrible because you were awesome. And I'm like, I was awful. Like you should have seen me the last 3 years. Like I was really good. So I think having a manager fight for you a little bit, and Gardy really stepped up for me. And then I would go up and down AA, AAA. So I wasn't really playing every day, kind of, I was kind of like in and out. And then what happened was Laius made the big league team in 92.
Yep.
With Pagliarulo as a split, or 91, excuse me. Was it 92? It was 91.
Laius was on the 91 team. Yep.
91. So I got to go to AAA and be the everyday shortstop. So that was really kind of the difference. I got to go there, play everyday AAA. It wasn't 1,000,000 degrees, and they pinch hit for me a lot, but I made it through. Then the next year I did it again, and Scott Olger was my manager, and they needed a defensive guy, so I got my opportunity. In
another life, or if you had better luck in 1987, do you think there's a chance you helped that 87 team? Because they bring guys up from AA quite often. You were already at an age where you would have been 23, you'd have been fine in the big leagues, I'm sure, in a lot of respects. Do you think if things had broken differently, you could have been on that 87 team? Because not only were you not on the 87 team, but you weren't on the 91 team either. You didn't debut until 92.
Right. I probably would have been interesting, because just me going to AAA and getting a taste of that playoffs was interesting. Like, I can't imagine stepping into a World Series from that. You know what I mean? Like that didn't really happen a lot back then.
Yeah.
Honestly. It does now. And part of the reason is guys see guys in the big, I had never stepped foot in a big league locker room as a big league invite, other than a fence jumper, which is they call you up in spring training just to play one game and send you back. So that would have been a huge jump for me. It was already just to play in the big leagues to get called up. I didn't even know those guys. I've seen, a couple of guys here and there when I'd show up for a game. I knew Puckett because he went to my junior college. So we were kind of tight, where he'd take care of me a little bit. And a couple other guys, and just, basically Scotty Erickson, Knobloch, and the guys that I saw on the way by, Laius and all those guys, that kind of shot. I stayed in AA. I was the mayor. So everybody had to come through and see me, say hello, and then went up to the big leagues. So that was kind of my thing. Those guys I kind of knew, but the older guys, it was a veteran team in 92. A lot of veteran guys that I really didn't know. And they're awesome dudes, Kent Herbeck in the world, they're awesome. But, just guys I didn't know at the time.
The reason I asked too is because in that era, they didn't ask much offensively from their utility guys. And so like Al Newman hung around for a long time and didn't really provide much with the bat, with what you were capable of getting on base and playing defense. And again, you're going to know yourself better. I'm just looking at it from a statistical 1,000 miles, whatever standpoint, or 10,000 feet standpoint. Just a what if, because
I know where you're going with that. And and Al Newman was a great player. Al is a super guy and was just a good, solid player. And Al was, pretty talented, like he had, but hitting wise, it was maybe a struggle for him, but, defensively and in the clubhouse, great dude, like he got along with everybody. And, he, as a utility guy, you can't just be a bump on a log, man. You got to be a good teammate, man. So, and he was that. He ended up moving on and made some money and left. And I think Tom Kelly appreciated my defense. Obviously, that's what kept me around in the minor leagues for so long. And, so I think, I think that would have been my thing. Sure. I'm not going to come up and get big hits for you. But then again, I'm not sure that, that was what our design was as utility guys back then. Step up and get big hits. Nowadays, utility guys, can hit 30 homers, so they get paid to do those things now.
Especially if they're Marwin Gonzalez or Ben Zobrist,
Yes.
do different things.
And my thing was, you can put me anywhere in the infield, and there's not gonna be a drop off from your starter. Like I can play defense, I felt like, with anybody. So that was kind of the thing. So when you have that that's kind of a luxury for a manager
Mhm.
because they don't have to worry about who they pinch at, whatever, and where you're going to put you because they know that's not a liability for the next 2 innings or inning or so when they do that.
So you have to have a pretty good going to the big league story, don't you?
Yeah, I guess my thing was I was an old dude. So, what happened was my story real quick was we're in Portland flying to Edmonton and it's earlier season, May-ish, but that's early for Canada.
Yeah.
And it's ice snowing on the runway as we're landing. And Chip Hale is kind of like my roommate, whatever. And he's, we were big league roommates when you had big league roommates too, but he was kind of my buddy. And he was, if anybody knows Chip, he's super energetic. Like it almost looks fake to everybody. Like, oh, that can't be real. That's Chip. Like he's super positive about stuff. So he's like, we're playing today. We're going to play today. And we're all going, like, it's an inch of snow. Like we're not playing today. And he's like, oh, we're playing. We're going to play. Watch, we're going to play. All right, Chip, we're going to play. So we get off the plane, whatever, go back to the rooms. We're not playing. We're hanging out, whatever. We're going to have lunch or whatever. And I get a call and, back then we were taking drug tests and Scotty Alger calls me in and he goes, come up to my room. So I come up to the room and he goes, hey, we got a problem. And I'm like, okay, what's the problem? Like, we're not playing today. Is this a joke about Chip? We're going to tell him we're playing, And he's like, no, it's not a joke about Chip. I'm like, okay. He goes, you failed your drug test. And I'm like,
Oh.
I'm like, what? Failed my drug test? There's no way. And he goes, you failed your drug test, man. And I'm like, there's no way. I'll pee in a cup right now. I'll pee in a cup right. He goes, and he starts laughing. He goes, no, man, you're going to the big leagues. And I'm like, what? So I'm trying to process all this. Like I'm going from frantic, like I got to pee, like what's going on to I'm going to the big leagues, which is another thing. You're going, what? I'm in Edmonton, Canada. It's snowing. I'm going to the big leagues tomorrow. So that was kind of my story. And, I laugh about it now, but it wasn't very funny at first. So then I had to take the flight from Edmonton the next day to the Metrodome, and they were playing Boston at the time. It was kind of a big deal. So, stepped right in and I had a horrible first at bat, and that was also horrifying yet funny later on. And those are the kind of things that happen, and you're just like nervous as a house cat, with dogs all around. So that's the way it goes.
What was the first at bat?
Yeah, we got to hear that story.
Oh yeah, so that was I'm trying to remember Bolton's first name. Lefty reliever, had a huge curveball. Tom?
I don't remember.
Anyways, Tom Bolton, 87 to 94. That's right.
Yeah. So I come up to bat. I pinch hit for Randy Bush, who's funny. Randy's up there and he's got to face this lefty that he's never going to face. And Tom Kelly goes, go hit for him. And so I walk up there and he's going, what? Like, are you sure? And TK's like, yes, come on. So he sends me up there and I got Tony Pena catching, Tom Bolton on the mound, playing the Red Sox. We're winning huge, obviously, or whatever. I think we're winning pretty big. So they're going to let me hit for the DH. So I'm going to get my at bat. I get up there and then all I can remember in my head is they throw rookies fastballs and I am a fastball hitting machine. Like I love fastballs. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. He throws me, I think, a first pitch curveball, and I swung. I don't think it was out of his hand yet. It was like halfway to the mound, halfway to the plate, and I swung.
Oh man!
And it was a strike, but I had swung. I'm telling you, I swung. I could have turned around, set myself, and swung again. And I'm like, oh my God. So Tony Pena catches it. And I'm like, okay, next pitch. I don't know why they throw me a fastball up and I foul it back. I could smell the wood burning. I'm like, oh yeah. I feel a little better. And then they throw me another curveball. And of course, what are they going to do, Ollie? They're going to bounce it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to let you do that. Right. The guy just swung it one halfway to the home plate. So they throw it on and bounces 5 feet in front of home plate. And I swung at it again, of course, early. Swung at it. It bounces. It's so bad, Pena can't block it, right? It goes over Pena's head to the backstop. So I run to first base. I punch out. I get to first base. And if you remember Wayne Terwilliger at all, now this is one of the most awesome coaches. I don't even know how old Wayne was, 150 at the time. but he used to get out there and turn double plays with us. He was such a positive guy, you know, just a great dude. I get to first base. I don't know Wayne. Met Wayne once today, you know. Oh, by the way, I've got my double ear flap helmet on because I never had one in spring training. Never got a single flap. So I got my double ear flap helmet on.
Chip Hale style.
Yeah, they got in trouble for that, by the way. So so I make it to first, and Wayne goes, Reb. He goes, that's awesome. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, I just embarrassed myself in front of 50,000 people. And, you know, he goes, no. He goes, you don't get it. He goes, anybody can get a hit in their major league debut. They can even hit a home run. He goes, I guarantee you in the history of baseball, nobody's ever done that. Made it to first on a strike 3. And I'm like, huh, okay. Well, that's good. I got that going for me.
Here's another record I think you might hold. Most at bats in a game that you entered as a pinch runner, because this game, I actually talked to TK about this and he had the most ridiculous memory of it. Except he thought it was a day game, and I'm positive it wasn't. You guys played 22 innings before Pedro Munoz hit a walk-off home run before we called them walk-off home runs over the baggie. And I remember watching the replay on MSC the next day, back Midwest Sports Channel, before they rebranded to Fox. And my mom said to me, she's like, boy, I'm glad I didn't tell you guys you could stay up and watch that one last night, because I think it got done about 1:30 in the morning. But you had 5 at-bats in a game that you entered as a pinch runner. What's it like to play 22 innings, and how relieved are you when Munoz sneaks that ball over the baggie and right, and you guys finally get to go home?
Well, I lost you a little bit, so I lost it. But I will tell you this. During that, so Tom Kelly, as you know, was not a home run guy. Like he was, if you're swinging for homers, he's upset. Like use the opposite field up the middle. That was the Twins' way. You know, earn your hits, be a good hitter, occasionally pop one out. And so when we got to extra innings, you know, he calls it thunder. You know, whenever guys in batting practice start hitting home runs, he starts screaming, thunder, thunder. You know, so, you know, we had to have this special talk in Boston about, you know, how we could piss over that wall on the left. Like, let's use our whole field. Let's take good swings, you know, in batting practice. So, of course, nobody would listen and try and hit it over the wall. But at the end of the day, in this game that you're talking about, everyone went up there trying to hit a home run to end the game. And he's out of his mind. I'm sure he remembers this because he was so pissed. Yeah. And we're all just sitting there going, you know, 22 innings. That sounds about right. Yep. I don't know if it's a day game or night game. If it was a day game, it turned into a night game. We were there forever. 6 hours. It was unbelievable. So we're playing and and it was like, it wasn't even a chance to score. Like there was nothing going on in the game. I don't even know if the guy got on base in those extra innings. It was ridiculous.
Played a whole extra game.
Finally we get up there. And of course, Pedro hits a home run and everybody's like, see, there it was. You know, we could have done that, you know, 9 innings ago, 20 innings ago, whatever. Yeah. And the reality was Tom Kelly remembers that game because that was so against his religion, like so pissed. And that was just frustrating for him. And we were kind of like, okay, well, somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to score, running out of pitching. But I don't even think position players played pitcher in that game. I think it was all pitchers.
Willie Banks, Larry Cassian, Carl Willis, Aguilera, Mike Hartley, George Samus, and Brett Merriman. I think Merriman was a rookie and ended up going eventually to Colorado or came from Colorado, but all pitchers. Yeah.
Yeah. And as Ole knows, as soon as that game happens, Ole, what happens right after that with the pitchers? They all get sent out because they're tired, whatever, you know, so they send them down. Anybody's got options going down because they need guys that can pitch for the next 3 or 4 days.
Whole new wave of guys coming from probably Salt Lake at that point, right?
It's like a hockey line shift. Here they come over the boards. You come back, you know, and that's what happens today's game. They're doing that all the time now. So
you're hoping your starter goes 7-8. Keep it interesting.
That's what I thought was the next day was going to be a 2-inning start, or you know, something less than a 5 and dive, which would have been a disaster besides.
No, somebody's taking a beating.
Yep.
To get the bullpen back on track. Hey, I want to find out Who told you that rookies always see fastballs when they come up to the big league?
I don't. I think it was a old guy, local guy of mine. Was Fred Sherman. He was back in the 70s. He was a reliever and everything else back in the day. He was up for Fireman of the Year, and he's a local guy. And he's like, yeah, they'll challenge you. You know, you always challenge the young guys. And this is an older school guy, right? But he also told me, like, after you hit a home run, after the guy in front of you hits a home run, don't swing at the next pitch. So that was always in my head too. Like, okay, somebody just hit a homer. I'm going up there to hit, like, you know, if I take a big hack here, I'm going to take the next one in the ear. So I often took I was kind of let the count go anyways, but those are some of the unwritten things that I kind of, heard about, but
so it wasn't a rib. He wasn't ribbing you. He was giving you legit in.
No, he was legit intel back in the day.
Oh yeah. Sorry. No, I'm hooking away. I got, you hadn't, I'm sorry. You hadn't seen it before. Here's a couple of them.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to look good on the first one, it's just going to get worse.
I would have felt better facing you because at least I had seen you in my life at some point,
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Bolt, I didn't even know what he had. And that wouldn't have mattered because I was swinging no matter what. And, as you know, I mean, I didn't swing a lot. So for me to go up there and just start hacking at everything I saw, clearly I was not in my right mind, which happens.
We got Wayne Terwilliger's reaction. I need to know what TK said, or if he said anything to you. And then dovetailing from that, your best TK story, because I heard him telling a story one time about Wayne Hadaway, big fella, and I'm sure you got a big fella story too. But they were on a bus that caught fire, and big fella was screaming and screeching and wouldn't get off the bus. But I got to know, TK was not great to rookies. Last week we told a Brent Brady story. Gregg did, not me, obviously. But how did he react to that first plate appearance for you?
And you could talk to all his kids and his dog racing, and that was pretty much about it. The rest of it was not conversational.
Yeah.
And luckily, myself and Chip Hale used to pick his brain all the time on certain situations and games. Before the next game, we talk about situations. So that was pretty cool. But in that story, TK, he's got a mind like a steel trap. So he would he remembered this stuff way back. Obviously, he knows all the stories. But in that particular story, I came around and scored. Somehow I scored, and I came in, and then, the doors from the Twins in the old Metrodome used to just go up the little tunnel there towards the stairs and kind of go back in there for a second. So I went back in there to just gather myself for a second. That was awful. And I'm kind of like, what the, so TK comes walking back, and he thought I was running up the steps like I was done for the day because I was the DH. Well, that never crossed my mind. That's never happened to me. What, he's used to big league guys maybe thinking they're going to take it in.
Yep.
And he's like, no, hey, you're still in the game. No, you're my DH. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. And he just kind of laughed, a little bit and I'm like, oh man. And he just kind of turned around and came back. I'm like, yeah, I know. So that was pretty much it. He was just like, you're still in the game. And I'm going, yeah, why would I leave? But then I realized some big league guys used to take it on in when they were done. That never occurred to me. I'm a minor league guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about Kirby Puckett stories? Because obviously playing with Kirby Puckett for as long as you did.
Yeah, we got you for about 5 more minutes.
Right. So we got to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Puck was my guy. He took care of me a long time. He was, I've met him, at Triton. He went to Triton where I went to school and was just an awesome player. So he was, there's so many, Hank the Bank, he was always Hank the Bank. You need your check cashed. You pull out his money, I'll cash it for you, kid. He takes 30%. So, but his thing was, Puck saved my career one time. Terry Crowley was unbelievable hitting coach, great guy. When I was younger, he had a guy named Scotty Fletcher. He used to take a huge bat and choke up halfway and shoot everything through the hole. And they kind of had an experiment going with me that they wanted me to do that. And I, whatever. And Puck came to me and I was playing terrible and they were jamming me and it was just awful. And I'm going to get sent out. And Puck knows that. He knows everything that's going on in the field. And we're in Detroit. And he goes, before that game, we're taking batting practice. He goes, Reb, he goes, listen, he goes, there's times in this game when you got to do what's right for you. You got here in the big leagues because you can hit. He goes, you got here because you can play. And he goes, and sometimes they're going to tell you to do certain things, whatever. You got to do what's best for you. You got here because you're a good player and you will be a good player. So you got to do what you got to do, you know? And I'm like, okay, I didn't really know what he meant. Well, halfway through that game, this experiment's been going on for like 10 days and I'm batting 040. And at some point TK goes to me, I think we were in Cleveland actually, and because my family was there, and he's like, TK comes in and he's like, listen, he goes, I don't care what, because he knows I'm getting ready to get sent out too, I think, because he was pulling for me. And he goes, I don't care what bat you pull out. He goes, this thing's not working. You either hit it, you're hitting fly balls. He's like, you got to shoot it over there or you get another bat. I don't care. Just start getting some hits. He goes, you're embarrassing your family, your friends. Wow. He goes, yourself. He goes, so start getting hits. I don't care what you do. So you either take this bat or get another bat. So I look at him, I look at Terry Crowley, and I kind of, the Puckett thing was going through my head. So I went and grabbed one of Scotty Leas's T141s, pulled it out. It was more like my bat. Yep. Pulled it out, started hitting, and been in the big leagues ever since. Oh, so man. I owe Puck, you know, not just for taking care of me, whatever, but you know, that advice at that time was what kept me around for the next, 11 years.
I have a friendship with Scotty Leas from living in the Twin Cities here. He still lives here actually. But I wanted to ask you before we let you go, you were kind of from a golden era of Twins utility players, coming out of Newman, but you go into you and Chip Hale and Denny Hawking, especially. Yeah, Denny Hawking. And then going to, what eventually became Nick Punto and all that. Yes. Did you guys have any kind of like kinship from a sense like we're just all in this together, or what was it like?
Not really. Denny was just a young kid coming up, and my thing was a utility guy, and I did this all the way through my career playing for all the different teams I played with. I would help guys, and that's the way I came up in my era was I will help you learn the game. I will teach you what I know, and if you take my spot, you take my spot. But I feel like I'm a good enough player that I'm going to just go to the next spot. If you become really good and play here, I'm going to go somewhere else and I'll play there. So it was kind of like I was more of a mentor for guys, and I was not afraid to tell them how to take my position. So for me, the kinship was you're never really having that many utility guys together in the same spot. You're kind of fighting for spots. Young guys are just trying to take your job. Well, I didn't look at it that way. I look like, hey, they're trying to get to the big leagues. I'm going to teach them how to get to the big leagues, whether it's here or somewhere else. It's going to help them down the road. And those are the kind of things that you do as a player. I did that with Alex Cora when we were in LA together. Yep. The next year he gets sent out. They bring in Cesar Torres, and Alex is going to become the left-handed utility guy and the right-handed utility guy. So I had to teach him, like, listen, Alex, this is how you play second base. This is how you got to do it. This is what you got to do. Be ready to play, because he was just being an everyday player. Yeah. So those are the kind of things that go on. And then I eventually move on, and I only had a couple more years left in the big leagues anyway. So you move on and do your thing. But as far as utility guys, it's not like pitchers that hang out together or whatever. Right. Utility guys are kind of the float guy that hangs out with the pitchers. They hang out with the infielders. They hang out with, the relievers. They hang out with the bullpen catchers. They hang out with the clubhouse guys. They hang out with the trainers. They hang out with everybody because they're everywhere. So I had more of a team thing going with me. And I was there to help young guys. And that was kind of why I think you see a lot of good utility guys in Minnesota, because they were fundamentally sound and they played the game right. And that's what you got to teach them.
If you have time for one more, I'd like to ask you a quick one.
I got a couple of minutes.
Do you ever think about how your career might have been different? You ended in the National League, but if you had started in the National League where there was more value in late inning defense, pinch hitting for the pitcher, so on and so forth. Yeah. How do you think things are different? I mean, you had a nice long career, and so maybe you don't have any second thoughts of how it could have gone even after debuting late, but how would it have been different to start in the National League? Well,
it would have been different, but the one thing that was huge for me was the fact that Tom Kelly was my manager. With Tom Kelly being the manager, he played his utility guys, so they were ready to play. So I got in 2 or 3 games in a 3-game series.
Yep.
Like I was in the games. I started almost every Sunday day game. I would find a spot on the field to play, would match up certain lefties. I got, a lot of hard throwers because I like to hit fastballs. I'd give the starter a day off. That's how he managed his team. It's kind of coming back that way a little bit, but the guys, he kept us involved. So that was awesome for me because, there was a point where I thought I was traded to the Yankees. As a matter of fact, Terry Crowley came to the game the next day. He goes, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I doing here?" He goes, "Well, you got traded to the Yankees last night." And I'm like, "Nobody told me." So we show up, whatever. And I didn't really want to go to the Yankees at the time because at that time, now, Luis Soho, they ended up going out and getting Soho instead. And I confirmed the story with the GM at the time. Later on, I saw him in Cuba and he's like, "Yeah, I traded for you, but somebody got hurt and whatever. And Denny Hawking wasn't available to finish the year. So they're like, we're going to keep Reb." So at any point with that going on, Luis Soho got like 1 at bat every month and a half. And I couldn't do that. Like that's something I couldn't do. In the National League, they keep you active, but you're still, you're a little more active, but you don't start as many games. You kind of get in, so the way TK did it was the way I would do it as a manager. Was I would keep everybody playing enough that I know if I put him up there, I'm going to need him in this game. So 3 games before that, I'm going to make sure he gets in, rest my guys for a big series or whatever. And that's kind of how it was. So I couldn't have done it any better with the Twins. Now with National League, if I would have been with the Yankees and done it like that, your shelf life is not very long. I don't think doing that. You'd rather be in the National League. So,
all right. Well, Ole, that's all I got. Anything to parting shots?
No, brother, I appreciate it. I was gonna delve into your Orioles time with Ripken and.
Well, those stories, man. You got some of those. I mean,
but they're just always good and but appreciate your time. Know you're busy and love having you on. I kind of look at it and everybody. You look at guys that. You got 5-6 teams in, I think, and you look at it, and I always looked at it like you're a good clubhouse guy, you're a good teammate, you do things well, and that's why you keep moving around. You don't necessarily need to stay in the same spot and play for 20 years. If you can, it'd be great, but I always looked at it like, we got to play together in 2001. You were a great teammate and pleasure to be around. You knew your job. You knew what you were supposed to do. You took care. You were a professional. And so people were like, "Oh, dude, you played on 10 teams." I was like, "Yeah, I kind of went to this place and then wanted money. And then next place, you go to the next place and you help the kids out and you do what you can do. And then you move on. And it was a fun ride, but
your deal in the bullpen was a mentorship as well. That's kind of hey, you got to know your roles, but you got to teach guys what they're supposed to do, how to be professional and everything you do with that. And Ole, I kind of look at it a little differently. I look at it as I spent my first, 9 years in the American League. And every year it was like, I started with the Twins for 5, went to Orioles for 3, got traded to Kansas City for a year. And I had run my course in the American League. They'd seen me. It's like, okay, let's go to that other league. And then that other league was a little smarter. I got 2 years with the Dodgers and 1 year with Pittsburgh. I was out of years, man. I had to have to go overseas to go play, I think, at that point. So, you run out of juice, you run out of ammo. And, I was 39 years old when I was done, but I will tell you that when you talk with guys like yourself and you've been around long enough, there's a reason you're around. And so people always say, well, you have to play in the big leagues. Yeah, it's pretty cool to play in the big leagues. Play a long time in the big leagues is not easy to do. You have to be a good dude. You have to produce at a high level, and you have to be a guy that's not disruptive unless you're just an absolute superstar. But we obviously weren't that. So I appreciate you too, man. We had some good times together for sure. And I'll come on anytime and we can go back on again and discuss the old stuff next time.
We'll take you up on that.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Ole.
Happy holidays.
You too, guys. See you.
All right. Thanks for going into overtime with us. He is Jeff Reboulet. You can follow him on Twitter at JReb36. For my co-host, Gregg Olson, this is Brandon Warren signing off saying thank you so much for checking out that 90s baseball pod powered by Access Twins. We'll catch you next week. Peace.
Thanks, guys.